Hi guys, the Metal Maniac back again, and in this video I'm going to show off my collection of original pressings of 80s metal albums. Now I will do a video probably sometime later on, a video of my original pressings of 70s metal albums, although I'll probably have to wait a while since I don't have that many of those. I have like maybe 5, 6 around that. But I have a lot more original pressings of 80s metal albums, so I'm going to do that first, and then sometime later on when I get more 70s metal albums, I'll do that. But yeah, this is my this is just me showing my collection of original 80s metal albums. But anyway, let's get to it. Also, these are all in alphabetical order of band name. Just easier for me to keep track. First up is an original US pressing of the album I'm a Rebel by Accept. The original European pressing had a completely different cover. I don't exactly know what was going on. For some reason, the first couple of Accept albums, and even some other ones later on, have some really weird album art. But yeah, this is the first US pressing. Released the same year as the European versions in 1980. This is a sort of, I guess you could say, a variant of the more iconic version of the album art. So most people know of the Sword cover because that's the version that was re-released. The re-released and I think the remastered version as well had the same one. And that's the version that I think now almost every version from all over the world has. But if you notice this one actually is more cartoony than the more well-known version of this cover. Yeah, originally the first US edition had a more cartoony-looking sort of image of a sword. The lion also had red eyes for some reason. But honestly, I like this version probably just as much as the later version. I don't know. Yeah, sure, it's cartoony, but it has sort of like a goofy charm to it. Also, the back is different as well. The back is just a normal image of the band members, whereas the later versions of this, for some reason, had like a blue tint to everything on the back. I don't know. It's just very weird. But yeah, this is the just a normal version of the photo. All right. Next up is another U.S. edition of an Accept album, and that is the original U.S. edition of Restless and Wild. Also another different cover. This is actually, I think, the third cover variant. There were actually, I think, 3 different versions that came out the same year. There was the more well-known version that was basically like a circle of guitars and like a fire going on. And then there were 2 others. There was one that was very similar to this one. I guess the image was like slightly brighter. And there was this one that's slightly darker. But yeah, really cool. Although I'd actually say that the back is a lot cooler than the front. You can see the band members just silhouetted in the darkness, just lighted by just like a wall of flame, and then you have the crowd in the front there. And then the pictures of the band members on the top. I don't know what record company this is. I don't think it's the same one as the first album. Or sorry, not the first album. Oh, also, I almost completely forgot to mention. I made a mistake. This is not their first album. This is their second album. Their first album was just called Accept. This is their second album. My mistake. But yeah, this yeah, I don't remember what record company this is. Maybe if I yeah, I'm not gonna take it out, but anyway. Alright, next up, another Accept album, and that is, of course, Metal Heart. Yeah, this is probably, I'd say probably my second or third favorite Accept album. Yeah, really, really great album. It took me a while to it took me a while to find this one, an original pressing. Yeah, I'm glad I finally have this. Honestly, this is one of the very few Accept albums that never had a different cover when they re-released it. It's always had the exact same cover. Just this really interesting sort of like. Well, it's a metal heart, of course, but it's like it almost looks like it's made out of like a car motor or something. Yeah. Next up is an original pressing of the album Holy Diver by Dio. Oh, okay. I was gonna say, sorry. I thought I had some scuff marks on there, but no, it's just bad lighting in here, reflecting off of the sleeve. Yeah. The CD version is the one I had first, the CD re-release, and that one I don't have anymore. I probably sold it, but yeah, another one that I'm really happy I have the original vinyl of. The CD version, even though it did sound pretty good, this one definitely sounds much better. Other than that, it's pretty much the exact same. Other than it being original, this album never really changed all that much over the years. The remastered versions don't sound that different. The artwork stayed exactly the same. But yeah. All right. Next up is not really a metal album, more of like a hard rock album, but it's still awesome. And it does contain someone connected to heavy metal, or multiple people connected to heavy metal. And that is the EP I Will Be There by Gog Magog. Yeah, probably one of, if not the most underrated band Paul Di'Anno has ever been a part of. People hate on this band just because it's not Iron Maiden, or sometimes even just because it's not heavy metal. It's hard rock. But maybe not even. It's not standard rock, but I'd say it's more like standard rock, bordering on the edge of kind of the very light side of hard rock. It's sort of like a pop rock, but like not quite that kind of thing. It's sort of a weird sort of like. It's sort of weirdly wedged in between a couple different styles of rock. It's not quite pop rock. It's not quite hard rock. It's sort of like in between. Yeah, very sort of like I don't know. I guess I'd call it party rock, but it's a very sort of like party album. Now it's not like party, like I don't know. It's just a very a fun album to listen to, I guess. Yeah, this only contains 3 songs. Oh, sorry, I called it an album. It's an EP. This project didn't last long. I think it only lasted a few months before the band broke up. Due to I don't know. There's not really much information, but I think it had to maybe do with. I think it was a combination of Paul Di'Anno not being interested anymore, and also like record label issues or something like that. Yeah. This band actually contains some very notable names in heavy metal. Of course, Paul Di'Anno, but also Yannick Gears, who of course is now in Iron Maiden, and Clive Burr, who was the original drummer of Iron Maiden. Yeah, also Neil Murray and Peter Wills. But I don't recognize those 2 names, but yeah, Paul Di'Anno, Yannick Gears, and Clive Burr, 3 Iron Maiden members in one band. That's awesome. But yeah, definitely a very underrated release. Yeah. All right. Next up is Rock You to Hell by Grim Reaper. Yeah, this is an original US pressing. Yeah, Grim Reaper's another one of those bands that just got, like, basically bullied and just, like, shit canned by the record companies they were contracted to. First, Ebony Records, like, really treated them really badly, and then RCA also treated them really badly. Yeah, it's unfortunate, and it was so bad that they eventually the band had to break up. I do eventually want to try to get an original copy of their first album, but that's extremely difficult to find. This one is sort of kind of hard to find, but not really. You could find this relatively easily if you keep searching for it. Hard enough, you'll definitely find a copy. Yeah, this is my favorite Grim Reaper album. Although I do love Welcome to Hell, or not Welcome to Hell, See You in Hell. Welcome to Hell's a Venom album, but yeah, See You in Hell is a great album. But this is my personal favorite. Yeah. All right. Next is Screams in the Night by Hellion. Now I do have their debut EP just called Hellion, but I was thinking about putting it on in this video, featuring this video, but I'm not going to, because even though it's a release from the 80s, it's not an original. It's actually the original version of that EP was from 83. The version I have is a 1986 re-release. But this one, on the other hand, this full-length album is 100% the original version. Also, I really hate when like record companies discontinue records. I don't know if they still do this now, but back in the day when they would discontinue a record, they would like punch a hole through it. And then they would also do the same thing if it was like a promotional copy, like just ruining the fucking album by punching a hole through it. Like what? I don't know why some psychopath thought that was a good idea to make like an actual thing that the record company does. I mean, they could have done a bunch of other things, just like put like a market with like a marker or something, but they decide, oh, the record company standard, if something's discontinued or a promotional, just punch a hole right through the case. Very dumb idea, but anyway, enough rambling. This album is probably I don't know, it's either this one or their debut EP, which is probably the most well known by them. Fairly underrated band, although I kind of find that they're getting maybe just a tad bit more recognition in recent years than they have in a while. They actually released another EP recently. I think like maybe I can't remember when the last one was. Maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely off, but relatively more recently they've released something new. Just really great band, and very underrated. Alright, now we're getting to some Iron Maiden stuff. First is the original US pressing of their self-titled debut album. This one was just sort of a lucky find. Like, I went into my local record shop one day, and it was just sitting on the shelf. Although the vinyl definitely has to be cleaned, because the case itself is fairly, it's banged up a bit, not too badly, but the vinyl itself, it's not scratched. It is very dirty. Like, the person who had this did not take care of the vinyl. Well, I mean, at the very least, it's not scratched, thankfully, but it is very dirty and needs to be cleaned. I'm just happy to get a original copy of this album. Also, I think it was the only Iron Maiden album in terms of just I don't know what the original UK version was on, but I think this was on Harvest. Yeah, This U.S. version was on Harvest Records, and I think it's the only Iron Maiden album to be on that record label. Also, this is the only version that actually has Sanctuary on it. In the UK, it was actually released as a single instead. Alright. Next up is an original US pressing of the Killers album. This one was on Capitol Records. And of course, this is the only version you can get the song Twilight Zone on it, because like the previous album, this song was also just a separate single in the, when it was released in the UK. Yeah. Oh. Alright, next is one that's never had an official re-release, so it's extremely hard to find, especially in good condition. And that's the absolutely underrated live album, Made in Japan. Yeah, I don't know why the hell Iron Maiden just never bothered to re-release this. Now, of course, there's countless bootlegs out there. In fact, I have a bootleg CD that has the entire live show on it. Also, yeah, for some reason, Iron Maiden just really, I don't know, it's almost like they didn't give a shit with this release. Like, they had the entire audio of the entire live show, and then they cut it down to just 4 tracks, although some releases, 5 tracks, but some releases only have 4. And on top of that, they never bothered to re-release this. So yeah, I don't know. Like, this is like the only live album by them that they just kind of ignore for some reason. Yeah, it's very strange. Like every other live album that they have recorded, they're like not constant re-releases, but they do take time and do take effort to re-release them when, you know, at one point or another. Hell, they just re-released the Beast Over Hammersmith live album. They actually put it out as like a combo vinyl of that and the remastered version of Number the Beast. But yeah, they have yet to re-release this live album for some weird reason. I don't know if Steve Harris just wants to ignore the Paul Di'Anno era or what. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, Iron Maiden really needs to re-release this. Because again, this is extremely hard to it's extremely hard to find in general, but it's also extremely hard to find not only a good copy, a good condition copy, but it's also extremely hard to find a version with the 5 tracks instead of just 4. Yeah, very underrated live album. Alright, next up is an original US pressing of Number of the Beast. Yeah, this album basically, for some reason, it's just like with all 4 of their, all 4 of their first 4 albums. For some reason, at one point when they re-released them, I think the first remastered versions, for some bizarre reason, they completely changed the artwork. Well, the artwork itself is the same. The color palettes are very different. With this one, with most of the other ones, they're not that drastic. But for some reason, with this one, for some reason with this one, the color palette is so drastically different. The re-released / remastered version had like a completely dark black grayish sky. And it had all the brighter colors muted. And that's the one that's the version of the artwork that they still have to this day. But the original one, I like the original one a lot better. It just like the colors just pop on this. Like you get the sort of bluish sky and like the bright, vibrant reds and yellows and all these different things going on. But yeah, also the remastered version of the Number of the Beast just doesn't sound right. Like the production sounds very muddied and just very muffled. But yeah, that's the reason. That's the two main reasons why I tracked down an original copy. Again, the very badly done remastering of audio, and again the unnecessary change in album artwork. All right. Next up is an original version of "No Presents for Christmas" by King Diamond. Yeah, this is the first King Diamond release. This is King Diamond after he was fresh out of Merciful Fate. Actually, he brought a couple of the Merciful Fate band members with him to his new self-titled band. And yeah, this is just sorry, this I can't I can't talk today. Apparently, this is even though this is just a single, it it is fantastic. It's one of their best things they ever released. Side A specifically with the title track, one of the most underrated songs. I don't know if it was popular back when it was first released, but this song it gets so much. It just gets sidelined today. Like most people don't know it exists, and the ones that do just sort of say, "Oh yeah, this is a song that they did." Or not, they don't say that, but like it's like they act like it. They just, oh yeah, this is a thing that they did, but you know. But honestly, it's one of their best songs ever. That's why I wanted to get this, because I don't think it was ever on any. Maybe it was on like a bonus track on a re-released version of one of their albums. Maybe I'm not quite sure, but although they did re-release this single recently, but like it's like this very bad looking picture disc. It's a very weird picture. It's not the same image. It's like a weird picture of like King Diamond next to like a taxidermied reindeer head, and like the logo is in this very weird like the version of logo on that is also like this very badly rendered CGI looking logo. But yeah, I wanted to get an original copy because the the picture just does not look good. All right, next up is the EP "Cease to Exist" by the thrash metal band Metal Onslaught. Very underrated and very, unfortunately, very short-lived band. They released one demo and then this EP, and then broke up right after. Um, but it's one of the very few bands from the state that I live in. Of course, they're from Illinois. So glad to see at least there's some bands out there that are that are from my state. But yeah, a really underrated thrash metal band. They're sort of pretty much just straightforward thrash metal. They don't do anything fancy. They don't do anything sort of out there. They're just basically just I wouldn't say standard, but they're just basically they're just thrash metal. You know, they just do what they do, and they don't do anything too much. But I like their more simplistic sort of thrash metal kind of sound and style. It is a good change of pace once in a while to just listen to just straightforward thrash or not depending, just whatever genre of metal. Like sometimes it's just good to listen to just the more simple stuff. Sometimes, this is a band that's like that. All right. Next up is an original pressing of the Queensryche EP. Now this has been re-released, but for some reason it's never been re-released on vinyl. It's only ever been re-released on CD. Yeah, it's about time that Queensryche finally re-released this EP on vinyl. Um, because it's extremely hard to find, especially in good condition. But yeah, probably the only good thing by this band they ever released. Honestly, I'm not a fan of anything else of theirs. They sort of like lose the metal aspect later on, but here this is, to me this is them at their absolute best. Even though there's only 4 tracks on here, they're all fantastic. Queen of the Reich, best song they ever recorded. Knight Rider, super underrated. Slayer actually did a cover of that back in their early days. Blinded is fantastic, and the Lady Wore Black is a song that at first I didn't like, but it was a grower. I do like it now, but it took a while. Yeah, absolutely fantastic EP, and definitely needs a re-release on vinyl. All right, I have 2 left here. Alright, next is the absolutely underrated thrash metal compilation, Raging Death. This was originally released in 1987, of course this is the original version, and then it was re-released a year later in 1988, and then it was released sometime, I think, it was re-released a third time on cassette around, I think it was like the late 2000s, early 2010s maybe. But yeah, absolutely fantastic compilation. It contains songs by the bands Betrayal, Lethal Presence, Ravage, Sadist, and Executioner. Some underrated stuff right here. Some of the best thrash metal of the 80s, honestly. And lastly, hold on. There we go. And lastly is the self-titled debut album by the heavy metal band Steeler. This is the only thing they ever put out before the band broke up, and Ron Keel started his own self-titled band Keel, which started off as sort of like a heavy metal glam metal hybrid kind of sound, and then sort of veered off into just very, very weird territories with like 90s heavy metal to like even like country music for some reason, and then country rock, and it just the Keel band went in weird places. Yeah, the Steeler band, however, is absolutely fantastic. And yeah, sure, they only ever put out 1 album, but it's some of the best traditional heavy metal I've ever heard. Yeah, sure, it's a bit on the more commercial side, but it's still fantastic. Also, it was the very first band to feature none other than guitar legend Yngwie Malmsteen, as you can see right here. And of course, Ron Keel as well, who would later do some other really well-known stuff, even though a lot of it's not that good. And then, what's the drummer's name again? Mark Edwards, which I have no idea who that is. I don't know if he went on to do other stuff or not. But also Rick Fox, who was the original bass player for the band Wasp. Yeah, really cool supergroup, really cool band. And if you like traditional heavy metal, that's maybe a little bit more commercial, but not too commercial. That still has sort of like really just memorable songs to it. Definitely check this album out. Also, it's another one that was only ever re-released on CD for some reason. Definitely deserves a vinyl re-release. Alright, so that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Sorry, excuse me there. See you all next time.